Our Friday briefing with the Chief Minister, I thought he might be on holiday by now. I was only joking.
Yeah.
You did tell us in the last one you keep working, but it's actually quite interesting because we don't always see everybody come summer, because obviously there is a break, isn't there? I mean, let's face it.
Well, there is a break. It's the time for staff and politicians to have a holiday, but I've seen quite a few of my colleagues in and about. Council of Ministers meeting yesterday, next week too. So
last night was the Summerland tragedy. Were you there? Because I didn't see I went to the one on the actual site itself, and there's quite a few MHKs there.
Yeah, no, I had meetings.
What's your take on the whole thing about should it stay as, well, it says it's prime redevelopment land, all that sort of thing, or you know, have you got a view yourself? And is there a government view still?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important that we do commemorate the tragic loss of 50 lives, 80 people injured, and there is an area, but you know, you can see the Summerland site from that area, where I think the mayor and the mayoress laid a wreath just a couple of days ago. So I think commemorating it, absolutely, having an area, absolutely, and I support that. But having, you know, just putting the entire site over for a commemoration which some want, I don't think that's useful. I think getting the site built on, because it has looked, you know, it's been a dreadful looking site for a while now, and getting, you know, I know DOI are working with one or two people who are showing interest in the site to see if we can develop it.
Oh right, that's interesting you said. Yeah. It has been empty for a long time, and
yeah,
the big signs up saying for sale, you know, prime redevelopment site.
Well, I think there'd been one of the benefits of us buying the stables fairly recently is there was going to be a stable block going on the site, and that was going to detract from any developer wanting to build there. So now that that's not happening, I think there's a little bit of interest again. So we're redeveloping the promenade. That's going to be done over a 2-3 year period. So it would be fantastic to get that site and one or two other sites that I've been working on to try and get a bit of activity going on the promenade.
And selling off your assets, because you own that, right? I mean, it's a government site.
Yeah, it's a government site. It's an area where, you know, it's taxpayers own it, and let's get it sold and get it developed.
And for people who want it to remain as it is, and they've been, you know, the old thing about standing in front of bulldozers and all sorts of things in the past, I think I remember rightly. I mean, it is going to upset a lot of people. There's a fair amount of people who want it to not be developed.
Well, it had already been developed. And then,
yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Summerland 2's been there.
This is Summerland 2's been there, you know, since that time. So, I mean, I understand people. I wasn't there. I was only a child at the time, but I can understand people's anxiety over it and passion about it. But I do think we've been respectful in that there is an area that's been put aside. It's annually commemorated now, which is a good thing. But I think putting the entire site aside is
okay.
I think what's been done is tasteful and needed to be done.
The other thing I want to talk to you about is the UK government's landmark ruling about when you become vegetative state, you know, end of life and that sort of thing, when or locked in, whatever you want to call it, not actually end of life, it could be anything. But the change in the procedure that people can now, if they all agree, terminate life. Your views on that, and will we follow?
It's a tough one. I lost a very good friend to motor neuron disease, and if you know, we all have to shuffle off this mortal coil at some time, Paul. But if there's one disease where you could maybe think to yourself, well, maybe we should alter our policy, that's got to be the one disease. It was dreadful. It was very upsetting, and you know, for the friend, for the family. But then, when I was Health and Social Care Minister, I had my eyes sort of open to something. You and I, I'm sure, we loved our parents. We looked after them, and we'll do our absolute best for them, or did if they've already died. But I came across a couple of people who'd been abandoned by their families. I came across one lady who the family had persuaded her to hand the house over to her. She'd been taken ill, she'd gone into hospital, and then she got better, I'm pleased to say, but then the family wouldn't have her. And
this is on the Isle of Man?
This is on the Isle of Man,
right.
and we had to... I had to alter rules and regulations, because at the time there was nothing that could force me to say to someone, you're in hospital, there's nothing up with
this
you.
is the bed blockers.
Yeah, this is the bed blockers amendment. And in the end, the family had to agree to and she went into a nursing home, which was far better for the lady, because instead of being in a ward where there's people being admitted in the middle of the night and you're sharing it with half a dozen people, she went into a room where it was en suite, and from a taxpayer point of view, it was half the cost. So it was better for her, it was better for the taxpayer. But it opened my eyes that sadly, the vast majority of us love our family and wouldn't do that to them. But there are people, and the point I'm trying to get to, Paul, which is really important, is that pressure on some elderly people. The family abandoned that lady. Sure. They didn't visit her in hospital, etc.
This is about if everyone agrees, all parties agree. They don't have to go to the courts in future.
Well, yeah, but then you've got pressure then. If you're an older person and you think you're being a burden on your family, that might not be the case, but people do get concerned about that, and it worries me how on earth you come up with a formula where a vulnerable old person or a vulnerable person, they don't have to be old, feels that they're pressurised into agreeing to an end of life.
I mean, you're watching the Guernsey thing with interest. Yeah. I mean, that was probably the nearest to having a sort of official way to die.
There was a big gap in the end on the vote. It wasn't as close a vote as I thought it was going to be, Paul. But
the UK media got quite excited that this was going to be the start of it, and it didn't get through.
It didn't get through, and I know some of my colleagues in Tynwald are looking at this now. So I have great sympathy for that, having lost a good friend, as I said at the start of the interview. But I looked at it and I couldn't see how we could come up with a formula that protected vulnerable people from being pressurised into having assisted.
The UK have now made the decision that the Lords can say that if everyone's agreed, you can end life. Will we follow, or do we automatically follow?
No, we don't automatically follow, so that'll have
to go through.
It would have to go through. We'd have to alter our legislation. That would have to be a Tynwald decision, and I don't want to prejudge Tynwald, but I'd had a view in my own mind, and I changed my mind when I experienced this, and this lady wasn't the only one. There were several others as well, but I wasn't exposed to that. So as a member of the public, I had a strong view that maybe it should be allowed, but having, you're concerned about vulnerable people. So it's how you protect them. But I'll listen to the debate and I'll express my views.
It's going to be an ongoing debate.
It is, yeah.
Things will change in some way because there's too many people living too long, and I'll be one of those, and you'll be one of those probably sitting we'll be in the nursing homes together next week.
Oh dear me, maybe I'll be supporting the policy then, Paul.
Where did I get in that thought? I have no idea. Shall we end this whole thing by, you wanted to say, this is your one, launch of the 2018's earnings survey. What's that, very quickly?
Well, effectively, we're going out to 2.5 employers and asking them to give data on the salary. 2,500, what did I say?
I think 2.5, I thought you said.
No, 2,500.
Right.
And we are asking them to give data on salary increases that they've received, gender, overtime rates, etc., and the average hours worked. So it's just so that we can compare ourselves with other jurisdictions to ensure that the island is competitive. And
this will be kept secret, will it? I mean, say secret. We're not divulging.
Well, we won't be divulging individual information, but we will be giving a snapshot of. We've just done one on business confidence on the Isle of Man, and that came out. I think 90% of all businesses had confidence for their business going forward on the Isle of Man. Are
you asking them, or they just volunteering? How are you going to find your 2,500?
We are writing.
Mail shots.
Yeah, it's a random. 2,500, but it is legal. Legally, they do have to comply.
Oh, right.
And respond, yeah.
And if they don't, do they get fined or something?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's quite draconian, isn't it? Almost? So, okay. So look out for that letter coming, or email, or however you do it.
Well, it's important that people take part. Because if there is an area where we're falling behind, then as a government, we obviously want to try and help that sector to improve.
And no doubt, when the figures come out, you'll spin it one way and we'll spin it another way.
Yeah, and we'll meet in the middle, Paul.
Okay.